What's going on, my fellow Kino Lords? So today I'm going to be reviewing Beetlejuice, which is directed by Tim Burton, which is obviously the long-awaited sequel to the original Beetlejuice that came out in 1988. So as someone who grew up in the 90s and the early 2000s, I obviously adore Beetlejuice. This is a movie that I watched so much growing up. And even though it creeped me the hell out with the nightmare fuel-inducing imagery with the practical effects and everything, just the darkness about it was really off-putting. There was just this playful sense of dark humor that I really liked growing up, and just really made it a more entertaining experience, and kind of held my hand along the experience, even though it would kind of give me fucking nightmares in some ways. I really liked that element about it. And even though I really like the original Beetlejuice, I wasn't all that excited for the sequel. And the reason why that is because there's a 30-year gap. And whenever there's like a 30-year gap between the original and they come out with a sequel or a reboot, it always just screams like, I just want to make money. Like, it just seems like the producers have dollar signs in their eyes and they're just ready to capitalize on nostalgia, and that's it. And that's what the trailer vibes gave me. Like, from the trailer, I was like, this feels like nostalgia bait. This feels like, hey, remember what you liked so much in the original? Remember that one thing in the original? Hey, look, we also put it here in the sequel, so you're gonna love it. So I was like, I just don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna vibe with this movie. I don't know if I'm gonna like it. But after watching it, how do I actually feel about it? Here's what I'll say about the movie, all right? First of all, I'm not in love with it. Not in love with it. There's plenty of things about it that I don't like, which I'll dive into a little bit. But overall, I think that this is a worthy and respectable sequel. And the reason why that is because so much of what we love about the original, like all the appeal, whether it be just like, again, that dark sense of humor, whether it be the use of practical effects, whether it be it's not reliance, but it's attention to detail and vision when it comes to like the cartoony gore and violence, whether it be the very like harsh PG-13 use of language, like all of that is very present here. And what I love so much about this movie, even though again I'm not in love with it, but what I did love about it is that it's very clearly a PG-13 movie, like a hard PG-13 movie. And I love that, because I feel like with time, as time has progressed, I feel like Beetlejuice, like in its cultural, within its cultural remembrance, I think people to kind of remember it as like a kid's movie. And it's really not. Like, it's definitely like an older teenager to adult movie. And I love that this film like doubled down on that. Like, there's a lot of harsh use of language, a lot of bad words thrown out there on this movie. You know, words like asshole, shit, even the word fuck is in here again, like just like in the original. I love that, because in the original, the movie's kind of famous for being a PG movie that used the word fuck, and this film does that as well, which is really cool. Even though obviously I know that back then PG-13 didn't exist, but even still, like even with that like knowledge, it's still awesome that a PG movie was able to use the word fuck and get away with it. And yeah, like, I just love that this film did not hold back at all. Like, I was worried that it was gonna kind of like water itself down to be a bit more kid friendly, but it's really not. Like, there's a lot of, you know, sexually referential jokes. You know, again, a pretty good handful of, you know, harsh language, a lot of like, you know, gore and violence, as I mentioned. Obviously it's more cartoony, but it's still like off-putting, and to me like boundary pushing. You know, I'm not gonna like spoil too much, but this is really great scene involving a baby that has practical effects that I thought was so good. Like, it's darkly hilarious and it's off-putting at the same time. Like, it's just like fucking diabolical, and it's so good. And just like moments like that in this movie, I'm like, hell yeah. Like, this is, you know, you could tell again that Tim Burton just understood the assignment. He knew what he needed to do, and he did it quite well in that regard. Like, it captures the spirit of everything we love about the original right here in the sequel, and that to me is like just so important. And it's in order for a sequel or a reboot to justify its existence, you need to capture the appeal of the original source material. You just have to. So that to me was just like so fucking great. And it even expands upon like the underworld world, like the world building within the underworld was expanded on a little bit. You get this cool thing called the Soul Train, which is humorous and kind of cool. And you get to explore a little bit down there more than you did in the original, at least from what I remember. So that's pretty cool. And in terms of narrative, it's like, so they incorporate this other villain into this movie, right? So Beetlejuice isn't the main villain, just like how he, like, you know, just like how he was in the original. He's kind of used in a more in a more different, advantageous way. And you have this other villain in the movie that is actually more of the villain of Beetlejuice, that kind of makes the plot and conflicts a little bit more dynamic and different from the original, which I think was important, and I do respect it for that. But what I will say is that the villain that's incorporated in here, I just don't think was written very well at all. Like, at first I was like, okay, this is kind of cool, because she's kind of like a fucking, like, she's like a sexy Dementor from Harry Potter, you know? She just walks around and sucks the soul out of people. But then, like, the resolve of her character is just so, like, abrupt and lazy, and just it fizzles out of nowhere. Like, it's just so, like, gone. Like, they have a whole scene, and they have sequences that build her up so much as a character, and then it's just kind of like within a blink of an eye, she's just out of the picture. And I just thought that was really disappointing. I almost felt like they didn't really know what to do with her character. They didn't know how to wrap up her character in the final act, and that's kind of what we get, and that was kind of about the movie. But, like, I don't know, like, what I didn't like about the movie is I feel like the comedy and the attempts at humor, especially in the first half of the movie, just wasn't landing. Like, there's some parts of it I'm like, okay, that's funny, that works. But I don't know, just overall, like, there's so many attempts at humor in the first half of the movie that just did not land. A lot of it fell flat. It felt awkward. It came off like a fifth grader wrote it, and it was just, like, really dissatisfying to me. And I'm pretty lenient when it comes to humor. Like, I'm not a tight ass at all when it comes to comedy, but it just wasn't working for me. And I don't know, but it definitely picks up more in the second half. Like, I think the humor works a whole lot more. It's, like, more clever, more dark, and even, like, how it's entwined, like how it's intertwined with the narrative and how everything is just a lot more effective. And I think the characters get to flourish more too as well, because look, Michael Keaton, he's fucking awesome as Beetlejuice. We all know that. He fucking still brings his A game, as I mentioned. Just really, really great stuff. But you have other characters, like, in my opinion, Jenna Ortega's character, kind of, like, she felt very one-dimensional with her performance. But I don't think that's her fault. I think that's how her character was written. You know, she just has that one serious, like, thing going on where that's all she brings to the table, kind of. But then, you know, as the film progresses, she's given more material to kind of, like, showcase more of her talent, and she has to react differently to more things. And I think that's another reason why I kind of like the second half of this movie a lot more than the first half. But yeah, I mean, all the original characters are back basically, except for, like, obviously Alec Baldwin and his female counterpart in the original. But yeah, they're all back except for the guy that plays Charles Dietz. He's not back, and I was wondering why that was, and I looked into it, and apparently he's been in a lot of legal trouble ever since the early 2000s regarding child pornography and, like, molestation and a lot of fucked up shit. And I'm kind of glad that they didn't put him in this movie, because that would have been in really poor taste. But they somehow found a way to, like, incorporate him as a character in this movie without actually having him as an actor play the character, which was kind of interesting and creative. I mean, I'm curious to know how everybody else feels about this, but they were able to incorporate him, like, as an actual element of the plot without actually having him act in the movie. So yeah, let me know in the comment section what you think about that whole thing. Well, I thought that was kind of creative. But yeah, I think ultimately my biggest problem with the movie is the writing, whether it be a lot of the humor, especially in the first half, that just doesn't work for me. And also, like, there's a lot of like expositional moments that are just like, to me, feel like really lazy ways to explain information to the audience. Like, there's a lot of things that are revealed about characters that are just through some character having secret knowledge and just gives dialogue about it. And it just bugged me, and I just didn't think was just not all that creative. So to me, like, really, that's the biggest problem with the movie is just the screenplay. I think the way that the villain character is resolved is just kind of lazy. The humor just didn't work a lot, especially in the first half, and then there's a lot of information that's given way too easily to the audience. It's just, I don't know. That's definitely the worst part. But I think the direction, and adapting everything that we love about the original, including the practical effects and everything like that, incorporating to the sequel, boom, you got yourself an effective sequel. And I really like that for this movie. And I'm not sure how much more else I have to say, but that's all I'll say. Again, like, overall mixed on it, but I enjoyed my experience overall. So I'll give Beetlejuice I think for now I'm going to give it a strong 6 out of 10. I don't know if I can give it a 7, but I think a strong 6 right now feels about right. I can see myself watch this movie again, though, for sure. Maybe when it hits streaming, I'll give it a shot. And you guys should definitely go and watch it. I mean, I think it's worth your time and money, especially if you have like A-list or some kind of like premium rewards programs. You go check it out. But yeah, I was gonna get this review out to you guys sooner, but I couldn't because look, so last week I got a really early press screening for this, right? I was invited to a press screening for this. So I was like, hell yeah, I get to actually go and get you guys like a really early review out. That's really cool. But I couldn't do it because I had to walk out of the theater because it was unbearable. I could not pay attention to the movie. Number one, I was seated in the second front row, so my neck was doing this fucking thing the whole time. And I think I could have dealt with that if it wasn't for the extremely obnoxious audience. That was by far one of the most obnoxious audience experiences I've ever had. And it was just like every single line of dialogue, I'm not exaggerating when I say this. I think like literally almost every single line of dialogue was met with roaring laughter and just reactions and like yelling at the screen. And even like in the opening credits, like every time someone's name would come up, they would just like start applauding and yelling. And then like Jenna Ortega's name came up and the fucking audience just completely lost their shit. Girl next to me completely lost her shit. And then the girl next to me too, she was just saying so much shit to the screen, just commenting, towards the screen, singing songs out loud. That famous like Jamaican sounding song in the original. That song is in the film for like a second, and they were all singing it together. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a tight ass. A lot of people are gonna like interpret me just being like an uptight asshole, but I sincerely could not pay attention to the movie. It was like so hard. It was so distracting. I had no idea if I liked or disliked the movie. And after like 30 minutes, I was like, dude, I gotta go. I can't. I knew that I wouldn't be able to give you guys a grounded review because I had no idea how I actually feel about this shit. So yeah. Sorry that I couldn't get this review out earlier. It would have been really cool to do that, but I just couldn't. But anyway, that's it, guys. That's my little quick story time there at the end. But that's it. That's all I gotta say about Beetlejuice. If you really enjoyed what I had to say about the films, give it a thumbs up, share it amongst your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be updated on more film-related content.